I've actually got two toasts. So the first one, I think we'd all like to raise a glass to the lovely bridesmaids. Girls, ever since all of us met Bryan and then subsequently met Vanessa, we've heard about this incredibly tight group of friends that she had and how supportive you guys have been and how tight you've remained despite the geography challenges. And I hope you really understand how lucky you are to have that kind of friendship, because it truly is rare. But if everyone would raise a glass to the beautiful bridesmaids, you're all looking lovely. And cheers to you. As for Bryan and Vanessa, so I've known Bryan a good many years. He was actually at my side literally when I met my wife Sandra, and he would probably tell you that his expert advice was essential to my successful chase that ensued. But Bryan is, as you know, a very, very thoughtful, caring, and intelligent guy. And he's one of these really rare breeds of someone that's equally at home reading a classic book of religious philosophy as he is plucking on his banjo and wolfing down cheap beer and bacon cheeseburgers. He really is a Renaissance man that I've learned a lot from in that regard. But Bryan, you're a terrific friend, a reasonably competent ultimate player, and I'm honored that you've asked myself and all the gentlemen to be part of your day in celebrating it. Now, as far as Bryan and Vanessa goes, you know, this is something that you don't get it with every couple, for sure. But I think, as particularly as Jenny attested to, they were a couple where early on, I think all of us kind of had that sense that they were the real deal, that they were going to stick, and that this thing had some legs to it. And Sandra and I actually had a chance to be there to see a specific incident firsthand where we both looked at each other and said, for sure, these guys are going to last. And Bryan alluded to it earlier, but there's a little more depth to this story. So this was a trip very early on in their relationship that Sandra and myself and Bryan and Vanessa had taken up north into the depths of Killarney on a 4-day canoe trip. And I don't know if you know this about Bryan, but he really holds himself in really high regard as an outdoorsman. You know, he really sells himself as a savvy camper and a wily outdoorsman. And so he was really quite pleased with this arrangement. He was really thinking, you know, I've got the know-how, I've got the skills, I'm just gonna bring this young lass up and just razzle and dazzle her with my cunning outdoorsman spirit and all my know-how. And he was bullish the whole drive up for sure, because this was his one chance to impress her, because if he couldn't impress her in this situation, he was SOL in any other situation. And so we got to the point of being able to hit the water and had the canoe packed up and ready to go, and Bryan kind of casually interjected into the conversation, you know, I think I might have forgotten all of the tent poles to the tent. And this is obviously one of the more essential items to any tent. And a lot of couples probably would have degenerated into finger pointing and name calling, but you know what, Vanessa said, hey, you know, we're here, how bad can it get, let's forge ahead, and had a great spirit about it. And, well, her question was quickly thereafter answered as the situation got considerably more dire as the cloudy skies turned to an absolute torrential rainstorm, and the rain was just pissing down. And Sandra and I, partway through the evening, probably the worst point of the storm, and we were, of course, in our dry, warm, properly equipped tent, peeked our heads out of the tent. And this was at a point that I think Bryan and Vanessa had certainly long since given up on any hope of shelter. And, because as you know, a tent in this situation without tent poles is probably just like a wet blanket hanging on you, soaking all your equipment in your sleeping bag. But, you know, there they were as we peeked out. Rain pouring down, but just sitting on the water's edge, you know, arm in arm, and you know, we couldn't hear what they were saying, but certainly Vanessa's body language was saying, you know what, it's okay, man, we'll get through this, and we'll forge ahead. And I looked over at Sandra and was thinking, you know, I don't care how calm she looks to be, there's no way she's not PO'd with this situation. But you know what? The fact that she's remaining calm and pretending to be okay about it, she must really like this guy. And I think that's when Sandra and I knew that, you know, they had something special going, and Vanessa was a special woman who had a lot of compassion. And that's really been, I think, a hallmark that we've all seen of the relationship is it's a back and forth compassion and understanding they've had for each other. And it certainly bodes really well for everything in the future. And I know some other people have tried to comment on advice, so I won't say this is advice because I'm certainly still a novice to marriage with only a couple years under my belt. But the one thing I certainly have learned is a happy marriage is much less about how compatible you are than it is how you deal with the incompatibilities between the two people. And certainly you guys have displayed tremendous strength in this. Vanessa, I mean, you've had the patience of Job in withstanding jam band after jam band and debate after debate about the state of wealth ultimate. And Bryan, I think similar to myself, you've found a happy way of living with a woman that has a sense of cleanliness beyond anything we had ever encountered or but this is something that obviously inspires all of those around you, and it makes us really proud to know you. And I'd like everyone to raise a glass because, guys, you are, I hope you get a chance to look around tonight because you really are surrounded by people that adore you and love you and wish you a life of happiness and laughter. So cheers to Bryan and Vanessa.